Happy Saturday. I hope you are having a good day, doing whatever it is you are doing. Today, I'm going over 3 of the items on my official general and special election ballot. This is my copied version of my ballot, so everything on here I have already voted for. My vote, my choice, my voice, just as your ballot is your vote, your choice, your voice. So get out and vote if you can, or stay in and vote and read up on things, or maybe you've already voted, or maybe you're not going to vote. A whole lot of different things. So today I'm going over 3 different ballot items. And so the first ballot item is, we're just going to go straight into this, is Attorney General. It is a partisan office, vote for one. So there is Bob Ferguson, who prefers the Democratic Party, and there's Matt Larkin, who prefers the Republican Party. And so I have a number of things I took into consideration for this position, in addition to what was provided in the voter pamphlet. So one of my aunts, I have one aunt who is a retired school lunch lady and one aunt who is environmental claims consulting. So she deals a lot with the legal community, and that's her job, and she testifies as an expert witness in court and goes through depositions, so not everything goes to trial. That's something to know, is a lot of things can actually not go to trial. And so one thing, just kind of a comment on the state of the legal system, is a lot of lawyers don't treat her very well, and so at some point I would like to see the legal community and lawyers specifically taking responsibility for their actions. So things such as, if you're going to dehumanize someone or be very belligerent and attacking in a deposition, or when someone's testifying, be it before a case goes to court or before a case goes to trial, or whether case is in trial or not, is when you verbally attack someone and their history, there are negative mental effects that come with that. So seeing lawyers foot the medical bill for some of those consequences of their actions, not just for the expert witnesses, but for the families of the expert witnesses as well. Because like my aunt, she can't talk about a case when it's going on. And so there's a bit of, we are here for emotional and loving support, and we're with her all the way through these. They can take a serious toll on her. And so at some point, lawyers need to start taking responsibility for their actions. And then, so that was something I took into consideration here, is we need an improvement of standards. And so of these candidates, or these people on my ballot, which one is, do I think, a hiring of standard from what it is now? Because these are cases that she's been working on for a while, for a few years now. And so taking that into mind, something needs to change. And so there's one thing. And then another thing is, when I was at the University of California, Berkeley, I became, I'll call it legal literacy. So I became legal literate in a few areas of law, because there was a breach. I had a 5-year contract, and I had multiple, so more than one supervisor break the contract, and there was nobody there to defend me. The lawyers were all there for the professors and that kind of thing. And I was like, okay, they broke the law and they broke their contract. What laws would that be, and how do I make sure that I don't break the law? And what does that mean? And so there were things like not getting paid, like finance. So that would be like not getting paid for work I had already done. And then there were quite a few of repeated operational, like procedural operations violations. Kind of wonky terminology, I know. And so you can rearrange that to how it makes sense. There were violations and procedural operations there. And there was some civil rights kind of things and civil law, in the sense of harassment and discrimination. And so I started reading about all of this, but at the core and why I got out was because I was contract law. And I also I was trying to, and succeeded in large part, in defending my intellectual property. So I became literate, at least in a small degree. These are very complex fields: export control laws, patent law, and copyright laws. And contract law was the core of the issue. At the end of it, it was, they have violated the contract. Do I really want to be affiliated with this university, the University of California, Berkeley, going forward? Well, if this happens now, what am I going to expect when I'm an alumni? Is this ever going to end? And so it was like a bit of I have zero guarantee of that, and so I'm out of here for eternity. Freedom from this university for eternity. So there was a whole lot of motivation, and I can tell you, contract law, when you have a real situation you are working through to get out of, it's not boring stuff at all. It's all relevant, it's all pertinent, and with contract law, it's useful to know that time is of the essence, and it's better late than never. So getting started at some point, just so you can get out of a really bad situation. So legal literacy is something I highly recommend. It also makes it very clear when talking to a lawyer, and I've talked to lawyers since then, kind of started getting legal literate in a very intensive, accelerated manner in 2017. And since then, it becomes a lot more obvious when a lawyer is doing something as a fear tactic or a power play or trying to intimidate you, but not being consistent with the law. And so that's something I would kind of recommend for everyone, and I hope you don't have to be in a bad situation and using it as survival, those laws that you're learning. But it is something that makes looking at things like Attorney General less daunting. And yeah. So I voted for, so all of that I took into consideration, and what it kind of came down to is I wanted a hiring as standard. A hiring as standard. And so there was one person who I thought matched that, a hiring as standard, and that was Matt Larkin, who prefers the Republican Party. So I voted for Matt Larkin. And I voted for him. I liked this. As an owner of a third-generation manufacturing company, I understand the struggles that Washington businesses face every day, and I will fight to make Washington a more business-friendly state. I think with a manufacturing company specifically, there's a whole lot of operations that go on, and a whole lot of things that you have to be cognizant of, including and not limited to things like sourcing of materials, how those materials are put together, what it is you're manufacturing, that kind of thing. And just having that experience, as well as he has multiple degrees in law, a master's of law degree, a law degree, so LLM, and a law degree, a JD. And so having that just experience of working or owning a manufacturing company, in addition to the legal experience, those are two things that I really like in one person. Like that's a recipe for goodness. So that's why I voted for Matt Larkin for Attorney General. All right, the next ballot item is the Commissioner of Public Lands, partisan office, vote for one. Hillary Franz prefers the Democratic Party, or Sue Quell Peterson, who prefers the Republican Party. So this one was perhaps the hardest thing for me to vote for on the ballot. I really like both of these candidates, and I have this past year done exploring in the Department of Natural Resources, different public access sites. And they are amazing sites, and they are extremely well maintained. I love just how information is presented at those locations. It's like A+. And so I was like, oh, and so Hillary Franz is the current Commissioner of Public Lands, and I'm like, it's incredible. And I voted for Sue Quell. I apologize for any mispronunciations here. Peterson, so Sue Quell Peterson. who prefers the Republican Party, and I voted for her. So went over this a couple of times, or a few times, and there was one thing that caught my attention. So this is part of the submitted statement. So this is Sue Quayle Peterson, and so this is part of her submitted statement. No more policy by press conference or angling for higher political office. It's time for new leadership. Sue is running to bring that new leadership to DNR, which stands for Department of Natural Resources, the agency responsible for managing our state's 3 million acres of trust land. And so I really like that point. We shouldn't have policy and that kind of thing made by the press. The press doesn't tell the truth a lot of the time, and it'd be good to have policy and that kind of thing, especially when it comes to public lands, determined by the truth. So I really liked that point, and so I voted for Sue Quayle Peterson for Commissioner of Public Lands. On to the third and last ballot item that I am covering for this session. It is the Superintendent of Public Instruction nonpartisan office. Vote for one. So there's Chris Reichdahl or Maya Espinoza. And so I voted for Chris Reichdahl. All three of these positions that I covered today are at the state level in Washington State. I'm voting in King County, Washington State specifically. So I voted for Chris Reichdahl. This is Chris Reichdahl. And I liked this part of his statement. I thought this was really good. We have major work ahead of us. 1. Emerge from COVID-19 better connected. 2. Enhance mental health and other student supports. 3. Improve kindergarten readiness. 4. Build more career and technical education programs. And 5. We must ensure that rural communities have equitable access to educational resources. It will take experienced leadership to maintain our investments and further improve student achievement. I am the first superintendent in more than 30 years to have kids in public school during my service. I am endorsed by Washington's teachers. I would be honored to earn your vote. So I really liked that. And one of the other things I liked that he covers is school employees. So it's not just the students. A lot of people just focus on, this is what the students should be taught. It's all about the students. And it's like, well, if you don't have a good force who are being, sometimes students are mean to teachers. And so thinking about making sure that the teachers and other employees, including lunch ladies, like my aunt who's a retired lunch lady, making sure that they have the tools they need to be successful, be it mental health support or in-classroom supplies. And so I really like this statement and his holistic approach to education that is definitely not common by people who are outside of the education kind of system. A lot of people have common sense like that, though. So there's some people I've encountered who don't have this. I shouldn't say a lot. There's some people who don't have this holistic approach to education. They just focus on the students and pushing a certain set of propaganda. And it's just like, yeah, at the very least, can we take into account the health and well-being of the entire school system, not just one component of it? So I really like Chris Reichdahl's statement and what he's about. So I voted for Chris Reichdahl for Superintendent of Public Instruction. So those are the three. This is briefer than some of the other video segments. And so thank you for tuning in. I hope you are having a great weekend, wherever you may be.